So, Paul, where are you from originally? Where'd you grow up?
I was born in Anaheim, California, 1986. I don't reckon I have grown up yet, so we're still working on that.
Join the club?
Yeah.
What was your family like?
Kind of like the best of both worlds, I'd say. I had, a mother that I didn't know. She died from domestic violence when I was 5 months old. My dad beat her up real good, and she went in the hospital and never made it out.
Oh, that's tragic.
And, from there, I kind of gained, she came from a big family, so she had 4 sisters and 4 brothers, and then a mom and dad that were just like the salt of the earth, that nuclear family that is kind of non-existent anymore, is what she had. And when she died, I kind of gained, 5 moms and 5 dads. They're her siblings and her parents, my grandparents. They really stepped in to do what they could.
Did your father go to prison?
He did not. She was misdiagnosed at the hospital and treated for viral encephalitis. In 1986, I think there was an outbreak in Massachusetts going on, or not so much an outbreak, but some cases. And that's what she was ultimately treated for. And possibly what may have killed her was the misdiagnosis and the wrong treatment. But what landed her in the hospital, and her death certificate, cause of death says unknown, but she showed up at my grandparents' house beat up, holding me, and collapsed on the front porch and said that, Paul hit me. And she started having grand mal seizures, every 5-10 minutes until the day that she died. It lasted about a month. And he saw no jail time. My early childhood memories, other than being baptized, I have a really, really vivid memory of like being held over like this brick bowl in a church and having water poured over my head. I was 5 months old. It's really weird to have this memory.
How can you have a memory of that?
I don't even know how it could possibly be real or.
Did you see other kids do it?
No, but then I saw a video when I was like in my 20s of my baptism.
Okay, that's probably where.
But I had the memory prior. And when I saw the video, it was like, it kind of solidified like, hey, this is an early memory. Maybe not. I don't know.
Who knows?
But my earlier memory is like vivid. My very first, I could say, I remember my dad carrying his girlfriend up a flight of stairs in an apartment complex and just bringing her inside and just like really beating her, like just fucking her up, just really beating her good and explaining to me that she was in trouble and that is why she was getting beat on, and that was kind of my normal.
This was after your mom?
This is after my mother, yeah.
And so you still live with your dad after this happened?
I still live with my dad until I was about 5 years old. And I mostly lived, he had custody of me, but he would drop me off at my grandparents and then go on benders. He was an alcoholic, He'd go on benders for a few days, few weeks, and then come back and get me. And when I was about 5 years old, I had told my grandmother that my dad molested me. And that was like, kind of opened Pandora's box.
Did he actually?
I don't remember, I really don't know. It's just, your subconscious is crazy. You know what I mean? It can really hide things from you. Do I think he did? I'd like to think not. You know what I mean? But all fingers kind of point to yes. He hadn't been sexually abusive to me that I could remember, but I had said what I said, and that opened Pandora's box for a lifetime of trauma. I was taken from, we had a family gathering. My grandparents had the swimming pool, and with their 9 kids, they had, right now I think there's like 30-something grandkids and 20-something great-grandkids. It's a big family, so we would have these pool parties at their house in Garden Grove. And it'd just be all the cousins, man, everybody together, just having fun and just doing what families do. And the police showed up. And they came for me, and they took me in the living room, and next thing I know, I'm carted off in the back of a police car, and I'm taken to a place called Orangewood Children's Home in Orange, California. It's like right next to the LAC jail and next to the courthouse. And I feel like in that moment, I became like a child experiment. You know, they take you away in such a way that's like, you know, in the back of a police car, you're 5 years old, you know? Like, what does that tell you? Like, I've done something wrong. This is my fault. And you go to this group home, and they, you know, their thing was to, like, just pump me full of fruit snacks. They're like, dude, you know, fruit snacks, all you want, fruit snacks get you comfortable. And then they send you into a psychiatrist, and they pick out what med they're going to try on you first, you know? And from there, it just got from bad to worse. There was an incident, and I hadn't been there very long, maybe a month at the most, and this kid had peed on me while I was sleeping. And I did the only thing that I really knew how to do. I feel like I was just exposed to such extreme violence at a young age that my dad would dress me up like a cowboy. He was like a hick from Massachusetts, and he would put me in like a bolo tie and like the fucking steel-tipped boots. And, you know, the whole cowboy get-up, and I had these steel-tipped boots on, and I put them on, and I went into the kid's room, and I'm probably 6 years old at the most, and I kicked this kid's face while he was asleep in his bed. And from there, that incident, they sent me to a hospital in Los Angeles called County USC, and it was during the time of like the Rodney King riots. So I kind of remember like looking out the windows there, and you'd hear sirens all the time, which is kind of a normal around here anyways, but you could see shit burning in the streets, and it was a real chaotic time outside of there, and then inside was like extremely chaotic. You know, they would, you know, for the longest time I had these things with like buzzing lights and different sounds, you know, that like would really bother me, and I could never figure out why. And then later in life, you start putting in work to try to, you know, undo the things that have been done to you, and the buzzing light triggers a memory of being strapped to a bed, you know, with you got your hands and your waist and your legs are strapped with leather straps, and you're strapped to a bed, and you're just squirming, trying to get loose until you're just exhausted and you give up, and then you lay there and you lay there and you lay there and you lay there in hopes that someone will come let you go. And eventually they do come. They come let you go, and, you know, if you refuse drugs, they chase you down and shoot you with Thorazine in the ass and fucking knock you out. And all this is happening to a child, you know. I'm 6 years old, 7 years old. I never went to school until I was a freshman in high school, so timelines are extremely difficult. It's kind of like to pick an age or a year, I couldn't do it. You know, I can kind of just guesstimate, but I'm guessing I'm about 7 years old, 6 years old. And, you know, my grandmother came to visit me at that hospital, and I just remember her crying and crying and crying and crying and just being so broken that her baby was in there, and there was nothing that she could do. And oddly enough, I think they may have put a call into a social worker or something, but they let her take me home that night, and I never went back to that hospital after that. But they placed me in a group home in Mentone, California, which is like, if you're driving from here, it's San Bernardino at like the base of Big Bear, like Forest Falls. I guess to your viewers, it probably doesn't matter. They put me in a group home, and I lived there for like 4 years in this one particular place. And it was probably about 15 to 30 kids, you know, somewhere in between there. And it was toxic, man. It was like if you ran away, they'd strip you out of your underwear and throw you in a fucking padded room and leave you there, you know. And if you would lash out or resist like a restraint, you know, like pinning you down with 4 grown adults is a normal thing, you know. And you almost become like the worst version of yourself at a very young age, you know. At a very young age, first thing they did is put me on drugs. You know, what does that teach a child? Not to feel, you know, like, you know, being taught not to feel at a young age was I would say probably a pivotal thing in my life, because it remained something that I practiced until like maybe 3 years ago, you know, like, and you look back and you're like, of course that was what I would do, you know. It's what I was trained to do since 5 years old, you know. Don't feel, take drugs. And anywho, I'm in this group home in Mentone, and it's bad, you know. It's really bad. I have like, you're surrounded by kids from all walks of life, you know, sexual abuse, you know, child abuse, neglect. Some kids nothing, you know. Some kids were just bad kids and needed to be taken away from their parents because they couldn't handle it. But then you're like thrown in this melting pot of dysfunction, you know, and you've got kids sharing rooms who have a little bit of sexual trauma with kids who have violent trauma, and you just kind of see what happens. There's a lot of fighting, a lot of, you know, experimenting, and you wonder, like, at growing up, like, is this me? What does this mean? Does this mean I'm gay? I'm in this home with kids, with boys for my whole life, and, you know, kids do things to each other, you know, when they do what they know how, you know, and all you know is abuse. Of course, that's what you're gonna continue to do unless someone teaches you otherwise, you know. So that group home in Mentone, up until this year, was the longest place I ever lived in my life, you know. And it's kind of interesting, you know, all through your life, about 4-year point of living somewhere, I get cold feet. I'm like, all right, it's time to move, you know. Like, we've lived in this apartment for a few years. All right, let's move, honey. We own this house for 4 years. All right, let's sell it. Let's move, you know. And then now I'm here in this point with my wife and kids, and I'm celebrating, you know, 6 years living in a house with my own family. You know what I mean? Like, that's what I'm here to tell this story. You know what I mean? Like, it doesn't have to continue. And for me to be able to celebrate 6 years living in one place is pretty amazing for me. And I don't think I give myself props for it enough, you know.
What has helped you change from all the dysfunction you were in?
So much, you know, so much therapy. Therapy was finally finding a therapist who, when she looked at me and she said, I understand what you're going through, it was the first time in my entire life that I actually knew she knew what I was going through. And it wasn't that she had been sexually abused or that her mother was killed by her father or grew up in group homes. It was that she changed her life because she had young children. And that's all I needed, was that common ground of, like, making a change, because there's way more that depends on you now than just me. You know, I had kids, and it was a lot came up having children, you know. But yeah, I got out of that Mentone place, and my dad bailed. I've kind of skipped over this. My dad bailed. As soon as I went into group homes, he split. He went off to the East Coast. He's from Boston, and that's where the fight had started. My dad wanted to move back to Boston. My mom didn't. He beat her up that was a wrap on that, So when I saw my dad, I was probably, I would guess maybe like 11 now, the next time I seen him. And he came to visit with his new wife and new son, my brother Shane. And man, that was a really like confusing feeling, because you always want a family, I wanted a brother, I wanted a sister, I wanted everything. And then my dad comes to see me and he's got a new family. But meantime, I'm like sitting in a group home, with pretty much next to nobody. And it was a really weird feeling, like I didn't matter anymore. Like I was just kind of a lost soul. But I had these grandparents that never gave up on me, They did whatever they could. Every weekend I got to go home, I got to have a little peace, I would go to church every Sunday, I'd still be in mass with my grandparents, and I got to do like First Communion and catechism and all that stuff that was important to them. And, but Sunday afternoon, I'm driving right back to the chaos, and this went on for a long time. And I eventually ended up in a group home in Costa Mesa, which was like, I don't even know. It was much bigger. It was probably like 50 kids or so. And I think the abuse there was I think it was a place for kids from violent homes, like specifically. There's a lot of gang members, young 14, 15, 16-year-old gang members. So there was a lot of fighting, man. Like it was tough. I remember being one to always in trouble. I mean, they had this room called the level room, and if you went up in points on the level room, you could play video games and whatever, have snacks and shit. I was in this group home for 4 years, and I was in the level room for 1 day, and then like punched a staff member, and that was it. So for 4 years of being there, I got 1 day of like special privileges for being a good kid. So, there's some accountability to be taken there. I acted out a lot. I was a violent young man. And
when did drugs become part of your picture? Part of your story?
Like in high school, I never really like struggled. Like I never got strung out. I think if any vice I had the worst of was alcohol. Alcohol was like, it was fun, dude. Like, you know what I mean? Like I didn't just start drinking and partying until I was like 16, after I got out of group homes. But I started smoking weed pretty young, and it's hard to get enough of something that almost works. You know what I mean? Like it did a lot. It calmed a lot of noise in my head, and still does. I still smoke weed, and it helps me in certain ways, but also kind of holds me back in other areas as well. So until I find something else that can quiet the mental noise, I'm going to roll with weed for a little bit longer.
What are the downsides of smoking weed at this point?
At this point, like it doesn't pick and choose what it numbs out. You know what I mean? Like I have a 3-year-old son and a 1-year-old daughter. And there's still, I've worked on a lot of my trauma, but there's still work to be done. I think that it'll forever be work to be done, with my mental health and as far as growing and continuing to grow and just evolving as people. And I think it kind of slows that process down. It doesn't pick and choose what it numbs out. So I'm numbing out noise from my past, but I'm also kind of fogging moments with my family that I have now, and I've gone back and forth with, hey, let's not do this. And then I find myself, I'm even more disconnected because I'm somewhere else thinking about other shit. So
You're still seeing a therapist?
Yeah, I do. And it's pretty cool. Like after, I don't even know if I consider them therapists anymore as much as I do mentors and friends. Since I've gone down this road, I've pursued a career in that path of becoming a therapist and working with people with complex PTSD, veterans, child abuse survivors, the whole nine.
That's great.
But let me go back to this group home in Costa Mesa. So that was my last group home that I was in. And I was there until I was about 13-ish years old, 12 or 13. The state of California gave custody back to my dad. And there was a long custody battle between my grandparents and my father, which is, it's bananas. I think it was like a huge money grab, you know, like every kid in the system is money in someone's pocket. Every prescription wrote is money in someone's pocket. You know, I went to the dentist at like 10 years old, never had a cavity in my life. And they tell the dentist tells the staff at the group home, oh, he's got 18 cavities. So they took me in to a hospital, they knocked me out, and they drilled every single one of my teeth from the front back and filled them with amalgam. You know, and I think that is a money grab, you know. There's nobody to say no, there's nobody to get a second opinion, you know what I mean? So I'm gonna have dental issues someday. I'm gonna deal with this shit, you know, and never had a cavity in my life. So, yeah, at like 13, I get released to my father after this long custody battle. My grandparents were great people. I had 9 other people trying to adopt me, all with kids and families, own businesses, you know, like really normal, good people. And the state wouldn't have it. They wouldn't allow it. You know, for what reason, I couldn't tell you. Maybe it was my violent behavior. Maybe they dug something up on a family member's past. I really couldn't tell you, you know, and it is what it is, man. I get often asked if I would take a do-over, you know, like a second shot at it. If you could go back in time and save your mom or whatever, and the answer's a hard no. You know what I mean? Like, I've been through hell, but I like who I am, you know. It took a while to get there, to like the man in the mirror, you know, but I love it. And all of that part of my dark past, you know, it's chiseled me into a pretty stellar human being, you know, a good father, a good husband. I'm a business owner. There's a lot of things that I shouldn't be that I am. And I don't know how, you know, a miracle, having these grandparents that never gave up, you know, it's really special. So when I got out of the group home, it was my very first night out. My dad had rented an apartment in Anaheim, and I guess it was a way of celebrating, but he got drunk. He bought all the fixings for mudslides, and he mixed up mudslides and was teaching me how to make them. And I mean, I haven't lived with this guy in, you know, 9 years, you know what I mean? And this is how he's celebrating his victory. He got my boy back, you know. He ends up getting drunk, and he just beats me, dude. He just beats the fuck out of me. Like, I could see it. I could see his drunk face, the foam in his mouth, his bloodshot, glossy eyes. I could see it clear as day right here. Now and probably forever will. And he just beats me senseless, and he's telling me he's going to take me back. I'm going to take you back to the group home, I'm taking you back, whatever, blah, blah, blah. And I just take it at this point, you know, he couldn't hurt me. Like, physical pain was never a thing. I mean, I was a kid I would punch myself in the face and make my nose bleed in the showers at the group home and just watch the blood pour from my face and down into the drain and watch it go down the drain. And I think just to feel something, you know, I don't know why I ever would do that. But by the time I got back to him, like, pain was, like, he could beat me all he wanted, you know, it was just whatever. So he beat me up that night. He didn't take me back to the group home. Shortly after, he moves me from California to a little town called Avon, Massachusetts, which is like 30 minutes outside of Boston. And that's when the things just went from bad to worse. You know, I would think that growing up in the group homes and not having a family and, like, you know, crying for my mother till I was like 6 years old in bed, and, you know, she never came, and all this stuff I thought was like, it couldn't get any worse. And then you're moved from everything, you know, I'm a surfer kid from Southern California, you know, like, and then I moved to Boston where it's like sports fans and shit. You know, I did not fit in, and then I was kind of like cut loose, you know, like he didn't care. He'd spend most of his time in like the VFW, drinking and playing pool. My dad was in the Marine Corps for a very short period of time, and that's how him and my mother actually met. My grandfather was a Marine, and my mother wanted to marry a Marine, and they met at El Toro. She faked like she was like a news reporter or something, and to get on base and go dancing, and that's where she met my dad. And he got dishonorably discharged shortly after basic training for being like a violent alcoholic, you know. And then is hanging out in the VFW with a fucking Vietnam patch on his jacket and is like a total stolen valor. You know, it's embarrassing that is my father, you know, from having a grandfather who was like a real Marine, you know. He was a staff sergeant, and he fought in World War II, fought in Korea, you know, gave his life for a country, and then have somebody like totally lying saying they did these things. It's despicable, you know. But that's my truth. That's my father, you know, and I'm not his mistake, so it's not me. So I'm in Boston, and he's drunk, man. He's a drunk all the time. He's been drunk since 1986, as far as I know, you know, and when he drinks, he's violent. And you know, one night he was hitting me in the bathroom. He was beating on me, and I like. And when the police came to the house, there I go in handcuffs again, you know. And they take me to this place called Taunton. It's a DYS, Department of Youth Services facility now, but it was a mental hospital, like in the freaking 16th or like the 1800s, early 1900s. It's Taunton State Hospital. Like, it's a spooky looking place. And that's where I went. And then I went to court. I think this was like maybe a Friday or Saturday. So I sat there through a weekend until they could schedule me a court date. And then I went to a court. And at this point, it's like a maximum security facility. It's like locked down. When I went to court, I'm in handcuffs and shackles in the back of a paddy wagon. And I get to court, and they assigned me a $1 bail with a 30-day sentence. And the only person that could bail me out was my father. And I sat there for 30 days, you know. And that place was pretty fucked up, man. I don't know what their motives there were as far as like reaching kids and how you're there to help and steer them in the right direction. But I mean, it was like gladiator school, man. Like, I'm a kid, dude. I'm like 13 years old, a teenager, and you're in a maximum security facility with predominantly black community in Boston, and at least the ones that were in trouble in jail. And they're, you know, genetically much bigger than I am. You know what I mean? They're big. They're doing push-ups. They're just working out. They're jacked, and I'm like a little fish in a big pond, you know, and it was a scary time. I did that sentence, got out a month later, never got a visit, never got bailed out. And then was just kind of like in and out of trouble, just constantly going, in this jail, then I'm in this jail. And I think, I don't know, I was back on the East Coast for maybe 3 years, and I probably spent 2 of them incarcerated. And the last time I was in a facility back there was in Fall River. I was in this place for like 8 months, and my sentence was until I was 18 years old. I'm about 15 at this time now, and I had a sentence they gave me until I'm an adult. I'm gonna stay locked up. They told my uncle, hey, my uncle in California adopted me. They said, if there's any way that I'm ever going to get out of the system, I need to be adopted by a family member. And my Uncle Don was the only one my dad would sign custody over to. And the state of California agreed to transfer my probation to a parole in California. So I went at about 15 years old. After doing this 8 months, they took me in handcuffs and shackles to a barber shop to get a haircut, and then from the barber shop cuffed me back up and drove me to Logan Airport and walked me all the way to the terminal and uncuffed me. And the probation officer who drove me, said that he apologized to me. He said, I'm really sorry. He said, you're not a kid that deserves to be here. You never did deserve to be here, but it was the only way that we could keep you from your father. They put me in a couple group homes back there, and I was a flight risk. I was constantly running, I'm violent, so jail was the best place they could keep me. So I fly from Boston, Logan Airport to LAX, and I'm free. I'm 15 years old. I'm a free man. And my first time I ever went to public school in my life is now my freshman year of high school. I'm going to school in Garden Grove. And I'm expected to be normal, like fit in and be like this normal kid who is just gone through hell for the past 15 years, You think my mom died when I was 5 months old. Do you think my dad started beating on her when I was 5 months old, or probably when she was pregnant, So I'm guessing my trauma probably started in the womb. So I'm like conditioned till this point at 15 years old with just a completely traumatic life. I was born in trouble, like I'm 100% born in trouble. My brother was born in trouble. When I just found this out recently, is like just going through all this stuff, prepping for this podcast or interview, I reached out to my stepsister and I asked her if I could share some stories that involved my little brother Shane, who just passed away in September from a fentanyl overdose. And when his mother was pregnant with him about 7 months, my dad beat her into the ground and broke her jaw, and she had to have her jaw wired shut. And then when she had her wires taken out, she gave birth to my little brother Shane. And that kid never had a fighting chance at a life of parents who cared about him. My dad was abusive still. His mom was an alcoholic. And he never had what I had. He didn't have the grandparents. He didn't have the uncles. He didn't have, even though he wasn't in group homes and all that shit, he'd have been better off, Like he had parents that did not care about anything but their next drink. And he died in September from fentanyl overdose. After serving a 5-year prison sentence. And it breaks my heart, man. You know, his mother died about a month before he was released from cirrhosis of the liver. And at this point in life, I have 2 other brothers. My dad had two boys with another woman, one with one woman, Shane's mother, and then me. So he's got 4 boys. He's fucking dropped the ball on every single one of us. And he leaves Shane just the same way he left me, abandoned him. And Shane spent most of his life from probably 11 or 12 years old till, you know, a month before he died, incarcerated. In and out of juvie, in and out of jail. Then he got a prison sentence that was short, but with 4 years of parole. And he said, I don't want to do parole. Just give me the whole 5-year sentence. And he got out of prison, and I flew back to help him bury his mother. And we have 2 other brothers that live in Boston, and the 4 of us have never hung out. Ever. We never been in the same room together. We never shared a meal. We never went fishing. We never did shit together. I have really tight relationships with all my brothers, but as a family, we didn't have that. So I made it a point to just make this happen, and I rented this house on a lake in Maine. And we just had the best of times, man. The 4 of us boys for the first time together. We were just having a blast, man, just really catching up. Not even catching up, there's nothing to catch up on. We're just getting to know each other all for the first time, you know, as a family unit. And we just had a blast, dude. We buried his mom. Made a really terrible day a beautiful day, you know, something memorable, something worth being a part of. And being at this funeral for his mother, nobody got up and said a word about her. Nobody shared a story, a happy moment, a picture. You know, and I look around at the people who are my brother's support group, and it's not great. You know, his future doesn't look good to me. And I wholeheartedly wanted to invite him back to my home and help him get on his feet, you know. But I got a family of my own now, and it wasn't an option. At least not. It just wasn't happening. You know what I mean? I do not regret the decision. But a week later, I get a call from my middle brother, Nico, and he says, Shane's dead. And I didn't even believe it, you know? I'm like, I didn't even believe what he was saying. I'm like, what do you mean he's dead? He's dead. He's fucking dead. He died of an overdose. And it was a week, dude. 1 week. I talked to Shane the night before he died. And just was like, dude, I'm here for you. I love you. Anything you need, I'm here. Whatever you need, just you can be open, no judgment. Dude, I'm here. And that was about 8 o'clock at night, and I think he died at about 11 from They started to investigate his death as a homicide. It was a meth and fentanyl overdose, so those two aren't really ones that go hand in hand unless your bags got mixed up, or someone tried to kill you, or or he tried to take his own life. It's very unclear of what happened, but he's dead, and so here I am going back to Maine, a place that I would never wanted to go ever again. There's a lot of toxic stuff going on in that place. And my little brothers asked me if I would tell my dad. Will you tell George that Shane is dead? And I was so fucking excited to break that news to him, because I felt like like finally there would be some accountability. You know what I mean? Like my brother's dead and gone. That is extremely painful. But in my traumatized head, I fucking hate this person so much that it was like, I thought it was going to feel good to tell him that, look, your son is dead and this is your fault. You know, I hope you're happy with the decisions that you made. And boy, was it anything but what I thought, you know. There was no accountability. He blamed other people, you know. Oh, I tried to find Shane. I didn't know where he was. His mother this, his mother that. And I was just like totally blown away at somebody's like inability to even have compassion. Like he didn't cry. He was like, all he wanted to do was blame Shane's mother for what happened, you know? And I'm like, what the fuck, dude? So anyways, we bury him. And that night after the funeral, we're all hanging out. Shane had an older sister named Nicole. She's just such a beautiful soul. She's wonderful, man. She's really, she's been through it, you know, but she's like me. She's made a different life for herself. And when we were kids, my dad always said, oh, if you were a girl, your name was going to be Cheyenne. I'm like, oh, that's a beautiful name. I really like it. And we always joked about it because Shane, oh, Dad said my name was going to be Cheyenne if I was a girl. And then Nico and Zachary, oh, man, my name was going to be, all our names were supposed to be Cheyenne if we were a girl, you know? It's like kind of funny. Oh, I guess my dad never had that girl, thank God, you know? And then my stepsister says, Paul, you ever hear about Cheyenne? And I'm like, yeah, it was supposed to be all of our names if George was to have a daughter. And she says, you had a sister. I literally just found this out like a couple months ago, so it's a little hard to sit with. But he says, she said, you have a sister. And here's what happened. She said, when I was like 13 years old, my mom was 8 months pregnant. And her and my dad were fighting. And he threw her down the fucking stairs at the house and sat on top of her and beat her up. And the next day she gave birth to a stillborn, hemorrhaged out a baby on a toilet while my stepsister sat there with her mother and waited for an ambulance to come. And I'm like blown away. I'm sickened by it. I'm angry. I feel all these things. And then I'm just like, of course, like what makes her any different than me? And what makes her mother any different than my mother, And I just find this out. And then after the funeral, I gotta go meet this guy. I gotta go meet George. And we're sitting, I go meet him, and I had an uncle come with me who wouldn't take no for an answer, I went back there, I was my full intentions were to give the person who gave my brother his drugs a lethal shot of his own shit. That's what I wanted to do. That's where my head was. My uncle came with me, wasn't taking no for an answer. I went to get my brother's things from the house he was renting and saw the guy who gave him the dope. And because of all the work that I've done on myself over the past 5 years, I was able to give this man a hug when I wanted to take his life. I gave him a hug. I said, dude, I'm sure it wasn't easy to find my brother face down like this. I'm sorry. He kind of told me what happened. I didn't believe it. I just grabbed his shit and I bounced. And I was proud of myself, I gave this guy empathy, when it wasn't a moment where I wanted to, you know what I mean? Like this guy, my brother took his life. He put the needle in his arm. Nobody fucking shot dope into his arm. You know what I mean? So I had to come to terms with that. And you know how it is. You interview addicts on the daily, you know? Like, he wasn't shooting dope just once. You know what I mean? Like, the next step was back in prison. It's just total chaos. Like, it just so... In a sense, when my brother died, I had this huge sense of relief of, like, okay, I'm not worried about Shane anymore, you know? Like, he's gone, and I'm heartbroken for that, but I'm not worried about him. I've been worried about him for 28 years. I don't have to worry anymore, you know? So there's a huge weight lifted off of me for that. Then I have to go meet with my father to give him like death certificate and all this stuff that goes along with someone dying. And we're sitting in this restaurant, and I'm just like flooded with these feelings, dude. Like, so much going on. I have not seen this guy in, you know, like 20 years, you know. The last time I saw him, I asked him about my mother because he always denied. And the last time I seen him before this incident, I said, you know, the only people who know what happened is you and my mother, and she's dead. I'd really like to know. And his exact words were, I never hit her harder than I did before. And I'm just like blown away. I went to the bathroom. I pulled my shoelaces out of my shoes. I doubled them both up. I put them in my hands, and I was going to come out of the bathroom and strangle this person. And my phone rings in my pocket, and it's my wife. And she's like, hey, I don't know what's up. I just want to come get you. And I sat down on the toilet, and I put my shoelaces back in my shoes, and I walked out of that room, and I thought I'd never see this person again. And, you know, 20 years later, my brother passes away, and here we are sitting in this restaurant having lunch. And he's just buddy, dude. Like, nothing has ever happened. Hey, how are you? I miss you. All your kids are this. You're so beautiful. I'm so proud of you, and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like drinking Black Russians, you know, like to just calm my nerves, because I'm literally like, I'm a firecracker. I'm a loose cannon, you know, always have been. And I'm like, so I drink down like probably 2 or 3 of these White Russians or Black Russians in like, I don't know, maybe a half hour time. And my dad looks across the table at me, and he's like, you know, if I had one wish, I wish you would never drink again. And I'm like, I've been telling you that my whole fucking life, dude. Like, how dare you say that to me? You know what I mean? Like, how could you ever say that to me? And as lunch is going by, lunch or dinner, it don't matter, but I look down at my watch, and it's September 18th, which just happens to be the day that my mom passed away. And here I am sitting across the table from the person who took her life, now giving him paperwork on another life that he has cost, after just finding out about losing a sister. And in that moment, I told myself both my parents died on September 18th, you know, and that's probably the best thing that I ever did, you know. And it's been a great sense of healing to just, he's dead to me. He's still very well alive, you know. He's still running his program, you know. But it was a good moment for me to just say, hey, you know, this man is dead to me. He's dead. Both my parents died September 18th. One in 2023 and the other one in 1986. And, you know, I had started my healing process when I had kids, because that's really why I'm here. I'm not here. My story is long and dark and deep, and into my 20s, I started drinking heavy, you know, never abusive, just wild, fucking crazy teenager, riding motorcycles, surfing big waves, fighting. You know, in my early 30s, I, you know, moved into a property in a real rural part of like Temecula Valley area, and there happened to be cartel all over, which bought a house right next to me and my wife. They bought a house right here, and for 3 years I lived next to a certain cartel. And one day I came home with a rifle, and anyways, probably not not good to get it there. Anyways, I did a lot of dirty shit in my 20s and early 30s, you know, like, I don't know what legalities are, statute of limitation on anything, so I think I just skip over.
Let's not find out.
It's not important, you know what I mean?
Let's move on.
Yeah. It was fun. It was fun though, you know what I mean? It was fun. It was good, easy money, and part of my story. Maybe someday I'll write a book. I don't know. But anyways, we lived there, and it was just real toxic and dangerous. The cartel kind of took over this area and doing big cannabis grows. And I had some incidents where there was some gunplay, you know, some shootouts and things like that. And police got involved, and they're like, look, you just need to move. Like this, we're understaffed. There's 2 sheriffs that patrol like this 30 square miles of this desert. They're understaffed, they're underpaid, and they told me, look, someone's going to come out here and smoke all these fools, and we're going to come clean it up because we don't have the resources. You know, it really sucked because I bought this house for like $170,000. It was worth like $400 in 2 years, and it was generating me money. I had an income. It was, you know, I had my house. There was a second dwelling, and that I was renting out that paid for the mortgage and then some. It was an income property for me at a young age. It was pretty sweet living situation for my wife and I. And to lose out on a retirement plan because law enforcement couldn't do their jobs, it fucking sucked, man. It was a huge kick in the pants.
But your life is pretty much together now?
Oh, dude, yeah, for sure.
Tell me about your life now.
Yeah. So I met my wife at a Halloween party when I was 17 years old. I moved out with like 4 or 5 friends. Some dummy rented us a house, and it was like Animal House, dude. Like it was pretty fun. But my wife came to a Halloween party that night on Halloween, and I met her then, and we started dating in December of 2004. So we just celebrated 20 years together dating. And that was like a turning point in my life, you know. My whole entire life I had been basically abandoned, you know, like by everybody, you know what I mean? Like go in the group homes, I'd get out of that group home, go to another one. I'd go from one family member, fuck it up there, go to another family member, fuck it up there, go back to a family member, screw that up. Constantly I'm constantly doing stuff to where people have had enough. I'm not their child, you know what I mean? As much as you adopt somebody and they should become your child, it's really easy to give them away when things get hard, you know? I don't blame any of my family for acting that way, you know? Did it suck? Yes. Was it deserved? Probably, you know? But I met my wife. She's the only person, aside from my grandparents, that never threw in the towel on me, you know? And it probably wasn't easy dating me, you know what I mean? I always thought it was cool to be the drunkest guy at every party, you know, and eventually you get tired of apologizing for shit you don't remember, you know, waking up in jail. One time she had to pick me up from jail in Santa Ana, OC, Maine. She picks me up from jail at 5 a.m. They let me out. She had to drive me from Santa Ana for a drunken public to go all the way to Santa Barbara for another drunken public that I got, where I told the police I told the judge, I said, hey, this cop arrested me and beat me up for no reason, and I want to file charges and blah, blah, blah. Well, this guy had other allegations like that, so they took it super serious. So I go from OC, Maine, I get picked up, drive all the way to Santa Barbara, and they're like, okay, you know, tell us your case and what happened. And I told them, look, I was standing outside of this bar. This cop drugged me out and pepper sprayed me and beat me up for no reason. And I got locked up. And as I got out of jail for that incident, I was hitchhiking on the 101 freeway because I really didn't know where I was. And I got picked up by a CHP who wanted to take me back for being drunk in public because I was still so pickled. I'm like, dude, I just got out of jail here. Look, here's my bus token they give you or whatever. And then, so I go in, there's like, plead your case. And I tell him, look, he did this. I didn't do anything. And then the judge hits play on a recording, and it's me in the back of a cop car, just like totally bananas, dude. They're like, they're like, kid, if you get out of those handcuffs again, we're going to have no choice but to pepper spray you. And they're like being so nice. And I'm just, dude, I'm like, I'm just a mess. I'm just like totally just fuck you. I'm blah, 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 blah. Just everything. Like I deserved every bit of what I got. And I just like put my head down and they just, so I'm on probation now in 2 counties for drunken publics. And my wife is just such a sport, you know, where it was, you know, it's part of our story. But we then buy a house and move in together, and we're making moves. We have a beautiful wedding. I never did therapy, but I seem to have like moved on from all my trauma. I started a youth outreach working with kids that were growing up the same way I did. I would take them out camping and surfing, and we took some, one day I was supposed to take them to all these skate park tours, and I took a group of kids down to Skid Row, and we were handing out clothes and shoes, and oh boy, what a bad idea that was, dude. I gave a guy a pair of shoes, brand new pair of shoes, and I got high school kids, like 5, 6 high school kids with me, and I give this dude a pair of shoes, and he just gets the shit kicked out of him for those shoes, and they jack him for his shoes, and then he's just standing there with nothing. And I'm like, oh my God. And we walk a little further down the road, and there's a dead lady on the street who had just overdosed, and they're, you know, giving him chest pumps and CPR. And I get back to the high school, and they're like, Paul, what are you doing with these kids? You know, but to them it was really impactful. It ended up being a really good thing. It was probably not the greatest idea, but it painted a picture for them of like where decisions can land you, you know. So I'm doing these youth programs, and then I'm in Costa Rica on a surf trip, and I get a phone call that one of the kids that I was super close with was murdered. He got beat up in San Diego. He was into some gang shit, and something happened. They found him dead on someone's front lawn in Oceanside, and that really sucked. He was like a phenomenal skateboarder. His name was Anthony. Just such a beautiful kid, but he ran with the down and out, you know, and that'll get you sooner or later. And so that was really hard to have him die. And then shortly after, another kid that I was working with, his name's Chris, and he was down here in downtown LA. You may have heard about this, but he was doing graffiti, and a dude was like, "Hey, don't be doing that, man. Like, what are you doing tagging up the streets, you know?" And Chris was a traumatized kid. You know, his earliest childhood memories were dismembering bodies in his apartment. His dad was in the South Side Crips or something like that, and he was cutting bodies up. And who's gonna holler at a little kid taking the trash out? You know what I mean? But it's full of body parts. But Chris walked up to this guy's car and shot him right in the face, killed him. He was an off-duty sheriff, and he killed him in front of his wife in a car and caught a life sentence. And then another girl died of a heroin overdose, and then another one of a suicide. And I'm like, I'm failing these kids, man. I felt like, dude, I got no business working with these kids. What am I doing? They're dying left and right. They're catching life sentences. So I just pulled the plug on it. I'm not working with kids anymore. It was too much for me to deal with. So I pulled the plug on that. And then you start getting the phone calls like years later, 3 years later, 4 years later. Paul, you changed my life. Thank you so much. I'm having a kid now, you know. I'm in the military. Look at, this is my wife. I'm having a family. And these are the kids I work with. The wins in that scenario of working with kids, you don't see right away. They come long down the road, the impact you make. And I couldn't see past the fails that were just like one after another. I was like, I felt like partly responsible. Like something I'm doing isn't reaching these kids or reaching them in the wrong way. And it wasn't that. It was like the total opposite. I really did make an impact on these kids, you know, just not all of them. You can't
It just takes more time.
Yeah, you just can't save everybody, you know, and sometimes you don't you don't see the wins until later on in life, you know, and I think that was a good learning point for me to do it because I love to do it, not because I want to see the result right away, you know. But I started a plumbing business instead of that, and I'm like a 5th generation plumber on my mom's side. It's just kind of been in my blood. As young as I could hold a flashlight, like I was under a sink helping on the weekends, and it's just kind of always been there. And it's been a pretty cool vehicle for me to get through life. You know,
You're still a plumber today?
I'm still a plumber today. I fucking hate it. I hate it so much. I've always been into photography ever since I was a little kid. I wanted to be a National Geographic photographer, and then I found Playboy, and of course I wanted to be a Playboy photographer, and now I shoot street photography and like night stuff, and it's been really fun. But I got offered a job recently for an architecture firm out of Long Beach to shoot photography for them, and in the meantime, I had been studying therapy, and I turned down the photography gig to pursue a career in helping people overcome trauma and PTSD. But in the meantime of all this, I moved to Grass Valley. My wife gets pregnant, you know, and she has this boy. We have this little baby boy. His name's Bodie. He's like so awesome. Like all my dreams come true. Everything I ever wanted as a kid, I now have, you know, like it's beautiful. It's amazing. At 5 months old, everything dumps back on me, dude. Like everything from my childhood came back like a wave of, it was like a movie playing and fast forward, you know, just like frame by frame by frame by frame by frame, all these memories. I bend down to pick a book of matches up for my son that he was playing with, and I have these vivid memories of my dad holding me down and burning me with matches. And then, you know, just one after another, all these things come back, and I'm losing it, Mark. I'm like totally losing my mind. My wife will be like, oh my God, look how important it is to our son that we all eat breakfast together in the morning. And instead of being like so proud of myself for creating this home, this beautiful sanctuary that I have of peace and love and unity and just everything I wanted, I'm feeling sorry for myself. I'm comparing my fucking shitty childhood to my son's beautiful life that I created, you know? And I'm like, what am I doing? She says, look how important it is that we eat together. And in my head, I'm like, well, I never had this. I never got to eat with my mom and dad. And I'm like, I'm literally feeling sorry for myself for the life that I have created, which is pretty phenomenal, you know, comparing it to a life that I never had. And for the first time in 38 years of being alive, or I'm 36 at that point, in 36 years, I have everything I've ever wanted. It seemed like a dream come true. It was a total nightmare. I was disassociated like most parts of the day, you know, where I'm here, but I'm living out some horrible memory of my childhood. And I thought about unlifing myself, you know, for the first time. After all the shit I've been through and everything I've accomplished, and in and out of group homes and jail and all this stuff, and I'm considering this, you know, it's tough, man. It's really tough to think about, like, having everything you want and it being a nightmare to where you don't want to live anymore. You know, I'm thinking my son's 5 months old. He won't remember me. My wife she's so beautiful, man. She'd make a gay man reconsider. She is gorgeous. She's the package, like, beautiful, smart, fun, funny, like adventurous, like everything you would want in a woman. She is all of it. Like she's everything that I'm not, and then some. And I'm thinking I'm going to give it up, you know, and just disappear because someone else can raise my kid and someone else will treat my wife right. And I'm like, this is crazy. What am I doing? So I reached out to a therapist, and I reached out to a familiar therapist, one that I saw when I was like 16 years old. It was just the first thing. I'm like, oh, I'll talk to this guy. Dude's a total kook. You know, if I stuck with him, I would have killed myself. He was I don't know who was doing therapy on who, me or him, you know, like he's all talking about his son's addictions and his failed marriages, and like I'm like paying $200 an hour for this shit to talk to somebody. I'm like, I got friends, dude. I got lots of friends and family and people I can count on. I don't need to pay for this shit. So I'm on a job site one day and I'm just having a moment, and I just was vulnerable with a homeowner and told him, look, I'm fucked up, man. I got all these issues. I'm having a really hard time. I just need therapy. I don't know why I started talking to this guy about this. And he's like, oh, my wife's a therapist, and she specializes in complex PTSD and works with different modalities, one of them being psychedelic medicine. And I didn't want to work with her because I had kind of a working relationship with the family, and I just said, can she just recommend me to somebody? And she did, and like I said earlier, you know, for the first time in my life, I sat in front of a therapist, and she said, I know what you're going through, you know, and it wasn't that she was disassociated or wanted to take her life. That, you know, she changed her life for her children. And that's all I needed, you know, that was what I needed. And this woman worked miracles on me, you know. We started doing some stuff like talk therapy and EMDR, and it was really hard, you know. With a lifetime of trauma, those kind of therapies can be very painful and take forever, you know. Like EMDR, you're only going to work on one kind of incident, you know. You're not going to cover a whole broad spectrum of trauma, from sexual abuse to physical violence to violence that I've inflicted on other people to abandonment. Like, that's just a whole lifetime of mess to undo, and EMDR isn't it. So she recommended that I do MDMA assisted therapy, which to most people is ecstasy. And I had never done MDMA in my life. You know, I had found cocaine in high school and had a blast with that. Alcohol and weed was always, you know, a crutch for me. And I had somehow always stayed away from MDMA, and I think it was for this reason. So I agreed to it. I said, yeah, I'm down. I'll do it. And at this point, I had nothing left to lose, Mark. I'm like, I'm all in. I got my son's dependent on me, and my wife, like, is dependent on me. The therapy that I started to do with this woman is working, you know, but it's painful. And I do like 6 months of therapy with this woman in preparation for this MDMA experience. And dude, it changed my life in one day. Like, I was able to take 120 milligrams of a pill and just get diarrhea of the mouth, dude. Like, everything that I had ever struggled with disassociation and the abuse from my father and losing my mother and blaming her and just all this stuff, I was able to talk about it with no fear attached, with no judgment, you know. I'm laughing about things that affected me for my whole life, where I'm like, it's almost funny to me, you know, where I'm like, how did I let this sit inside of me and fester for like years and years and years and years, you know? It's like, it was wild, bro. It was like, you know, doing that session, it lasted about 4 or 5 hours, and it allows you to look at your life with like a bird's eye perspective, you know? And you're up above your life and you're looking at everything in a bird's eye point of view. This is just metaphorically. And you can pick up a trauma and look at it and kind of shake it up like a snow globe and process it, put it down, pick it up, process it and put it down, pick it up and put it down, and rinse and repeat, rinse and repeat. I went through a whole lifetime of trauma in like 4 hours. And I came out of there like a new person, dude, like a million times lighter, happier, more connected. The disassociation that I had, that was like crippling, you know, like it was gone in a just like that, gone. And in that moment, I'm like, I feel like I broke the code, you know, like of childhood trauma. And I'm like, I'm going to dedicate my life to this modality and to this way of helping people heal. And that's where I've been, you know, like I've been reading every single book that I can, taking every class that I can afford, listening to every podcast, watching every interview. Like I have filled myself with so much knowledge on different modalities of therapy and healing and just ways of living and how to just be more present and not live in the past and not live in the future, but just be right in the here and now. And dude, it's been like the single most impactful thing I've ever done for my mental health.
Have you tried MDMA therapy again?
I've done one more session.
How was the second one?
Painful. You know, the first one was a lot of love and gratitude and empathy, you know, even towards my father, where I called him afterwards and was like, dude, I forgive you for all the shit that you've done. I would love for you to get the help that you need, you know. My father was adopted when he was 3 years old. And I just found this out recently, but it helps me understand him a little bit more. He was an affair baby, so his wife, you know, or his mother had an affair and got pregnant. He's got younger brothers and he's got older brothers, and he was adopted out. So she would leave him sit. There was a stigma attached to him of being something that nobody wanted to begin with, you know what I mean? So he would sit and cry in his diapers, you know, cry, neglected. She didn't love him, didn't talk to him, didn't do anything, the things that a mother's supposed to do, you know. If you take a baby and you give it everything it needs, water, food, all the nutrients, but you don't talk to it, you don't love it, do you know what happens to that baby? It dies. It'll die. It will literally die without connection. And that's how my dad was brought into this world. So I have I gain like this empathy for him in a sense, and this understanding. And the hatred, it's tough because things keep coming up, you know what I mean? Like finding out I had a sister and all this stuff is still painful, but it's, you know, that's a 30-year-old incident, you know what I mean? I can't hold it on him still. But the second experience with MDMA was very painful, man. It was traumatic. It was far from the empathy. It was more so going through all the shit in my life that was like the real shit, the real darkness. You know, that's what I went through in the second go.
Have you tried other drugs, I'll say? Or hallucinogenics or anything like that?
Yeah, absolutely. it's not like a big part of my life. You know, it's, for a while I wanted to be an MDMA therapist. That's what I want to do. I only want to do MDMA therapy. And then I'm like, dude, I don't want to put myself in a box. No. There's way more modalities out there that I have learned that I can help people work through their traumas, and then the MDMA can be like, you know, plan D. If none of this stuff works, like, then we can try this. I don't, but yeah, I've experimented with psilocybin and MDMA, and a little ketamine is interesting, but they're not like a big, huge part of my life. They don't keep me going. You know what I mean? Like, it was kind of, the MDMA is like a one and done thing. Like, I did it. I worked through my shit. It was amazing.
It was helpful.
I never want to do it again. You know what I mean?
It was helpful.
Oh, it was the single most impactful thing I've ever done for my mental health. Like, hands down. You know what I mean? Like, and that's 30 years of therapy, you know, like countless SSRIs and different drugs, going through group homes and things, and 120 milligrams in a capsule twice, reset all of that, you know.
So are you working as a therapist yet?
No, I'm not. I finished my last class yesterday, so I can't call myself a therapist. There's something called a master's degree that stands between me and being a therapist, but it's I can call myself a trauma coach. And I can do all the same things as a therapist. So I guess that's what I'm calling myself, is a trauma coach. I've since had another child. I have a daughter. Her name's Juniper. My wife and I just celebrated 20 years together and 8 years of marriage.
That's great.
And, I learned something, and I wanted to share it with you the other day, and it has to do with therapy and trauma coaching and things. But I listened to this story, and it reminded me so much of what you do, and also of a little bit of how I operate as well. Because there's this guy, his name is Klaus something, I can't think of his last name, but he's in a jungle in Africa, and he's studying these monkeys. And what he's studying is the way that they communicate, like this chant, this chirp, or whatever noise they make means something, and this noise means something, and all these noises mean things. And after all this time of sitting in the jungle, learning all the different sounds these monkeys make, he's now hiking alone, and he's walking. And he hears these monkeys going off, and he goes, "Oh wow, that's the sound of a jaguar, that's a jaguar coming." And it's getting closer, and it's getting closer, and it's getting closer. And he realized, by listening to these monkeys and listening to the sounds in the jungle, that he's communicating with the jungle, with everything around him. He's listening. He's observed so long that he now understands what is going on all around him, and it's saving his life, because he knows, I'm being stalked by a jaguar, because I hear it from the monkeys. They're telling each other, but I'm aware because I sat so long that I can listen. I feel like you have sat so long quietly in the soft white underbelly, which we called Skid Row or America, or you're all over the U.S., that you understand these people. Not because you got in there and you wanted to talk to everybody, but because you sat there and you shut the fuck up long enough to listen, to where you are now immersed in that world, and you understand. And I think that going through everything that I went through in life, and the ability to sit silently and listen to people long enough to understand them into their world, and then be able to navigate that, I think that is where my work becomes unique to others, and you as well, to where I understand how these people operate and how they tick, because I've sat long enough to listen and understand. Not jump right in and try to fix their problems or be the most interesting person and fill them full of all this wisdom and shit that I've read out of books. It's like, you can listen long enough, you can learn a lot about people, you know. And I'm listening to that, and it made me think so much of you and what you do. And I just, man, it's like so cool, because what you've done has allowed me and so many other people a view into this world to where I understand addiction better. You know, I understand mental illness better, and homelessness, and all the redemption stories you have. You know, like you had a guy on here recently who he killed his assaulter. You know, mm-hmm. I can't remember what his name was. You had him on twice. He was,
Clark Fredericks in New Jersey.
New Jersey, yep.
Yeah.
It's the man. Dude, that could have been me, you know what I mean? But I see his story and I'm like, damn, it didn't do anything for him, killing his accuser, you know what I mean?
No,
like
he said it didn't help him.
It didn't help him, second one, yeah. You know? It may, in my eyes, I'm like, look, it might have been the best thing you ever did, because you're not fucking strung out on drugs anymore, and now you're helping other people. But on the other hand, he's got to live with the weight of taking another man's life, you know what I mean? And but that was going to be me, you know what I mean? So to be able to see into that world, dude, it's priceless, you know what I mean? So I guess if I had one thing to leave your viewers with is that, you know, no matter how traumatizing life is or has been, whether you are the person who's causing the trauma or the person who is being traumatized, you know, it's never too late to make a change, you know. And I started, and I'm working on finalizing a project. It's called the Morpho Project, and it's like a hub of healers, you know, of therapists for specific traumas. And the credentials are you have to have lived trauma in order to be part of this, you know. We don't want therapists that have learned everything from a book, you know, out there trying to help the people that we're attracting. So the goal is to have a hub, a network of, you know, of healers, whether they be licensed therapists. Some of them are, some of them aren't, but they've all been through it, you know. And the hope is that we could find somebody for everybody, you know what I mean? Like if you're dealing with a rape trauma, we have somebody in our network that can do that. That's been through it, exactly. If you're a war veteran, we got that. You know, child abuse, we got that. And different modalities, and then a place to connect, you know, and
sounds great. And
be with other like-minded individuals who are on a path of healing. So that's where I'm at now, you know. I'm getting ready to hang the hat up on my plumbing career. I really hope to give my business to my little brothers if they want it, and let them go on and flourish, and then I could continue to do what I'm called to do, which is, you know, help people raise up from really fucking shitty places and make a change in their lives.
You'll probably be a lot happier for doing it.
I'm pretty happy, man, but I definitely will feel more
fulfilled.
You know, for example, I helped a man process a sexual trauma that happened to him when he was 12 years old. He's 63 now. He's a therapist for like the past 30 years and hadn't really processed that instant in his life. And to be able to tap into a sexual trauma that I had at a similar age, in a similar fashion, and help this man process what he was dealing with, it made that incident in my life carry so much weight, but in such a beautiful way. So as I'm helping people transform their lives, I'm continuing to transform myself and healing myself alongside with other people. And then these traumas that I have, they carry weight in a different way of positive, of gratitude, of being thankful. You know, like who the hell's thankful that they were sexually abused, you know? I am when I can help somebody else process their abuse, you know? So that's where I'm at.
It's a beautiful story.
I think.
Beautiful ending to the story.
Is it?
It is.
All
Yeah.
right. I'm sweating bullets, man. I think
You did great.
You said keep it under an hour. And I think I did my best.
You did a great job.
So,
Well, Paul, thank you so much for sharing it.
dude, thanks for being here.
Yeah,
Thanks
we'll try to put all your information in the description.
Yeah, I'll get all that to you for sure. It's the Morpho Project. I have Instagram, Facebook, website's being built.
Sounds like it's time to start doing something with it.
We'll see what happens. This might be a...
Nice little jump.
I hope so.
Excellent. All right, Paul. Thank you so much.
Dude, cool.